Hello, this is Angelia with today's wisdom. Today's wisdom comes from Daily Ohm, Overcoming Obstacles. Nothing is insurmountable. And we all face obstacles in life, and that's what you're supposed to do is overcome them. You know, you're not supposed to quit and give up, and some people do that and never get anywhere in their life. And, you know, saying nothing is insurmountable is easy because sometimes there are things that you can't get over. But when that happens, you need to be like water. If you can't find a way over a thing, sometimes you can find a way around a thing, under a thing, you know, through a thing if you keep working hard enough on it. Yeah, there's always a way to do something if you want to do it bad enough. When our next best course of action seems unclear, any dilemmas we face can appear insurmountable. And I've had times in my life where I'm like, well, where do I go from here? What do I do now? You know, when one door closed and, you know, I was looking for another door or no window or something, as the saying goes, when God closes the door, he opens the window. But, you know, sometimes you have to look around and say, well, I still want to do this, but how can I do this? Because I can't now do what I was doing. So you have to just figure stuff out sometimes. Yet there is nothing we cannot overcome with time, persistence, focused thought, help, and faith. And that is true. Time, you know, heals all wounds. But time is also something that, you know, you should respect your own time. You shouldn't, you know, lay around and not do what you want to do and think there's going to be time later. Because later might not come. Persistence, definitely you're going to need persistence. I know people who start a thing, it doesn't go well, you know, and they're like, I'm done with that, that's not working out for me. But, you know, if it's something that you really want, you're going to have to work at it. Persistence is key. Again, focused thought. I know some people, and, you know, there are some people I know who can't help not having focused thought, but there are people who just don't help having focused thought. Those people, you know, bounce from thing to thing, and never really get anywhere because, you know, they're bouncing from thing to thing. Help, that's an important one. Ask for help. When I decided our city did not have enough resources, for, you know, women who were survivors of abuse and assault, I kept saying, why doesn't somebody do this about that? And then finally God kind of said, you know, whispered, why don't you do something about that? So I, you know, decided to start a charity. A friend of mine put up the money because you have to fill out an application to the IRS and all that stuff. We hired a lady to, you know, make it look nice and have pictures and then make it look like she knew they wanted it. She was a consultant and she knew how they wanted it to look. And so we did that and we got it done. And we helped 188 people in the community. We were open for 9 years, so I wish we could have done more, but we just didn't have community support behind us. And then we couldn't get any people to want to come in and, you know, take over things and run things that would be, you know, qualified to do that, who we thought we could trust with things. But, you know, when I was building, you know, a ministry and a charity, I had help, and I asked for help because I knew I can't do all this stuff by myself, you know. So if you're wanting something and you can delegate and other people can help you, ask for help. And faith is a big key there. You got to have faith, as is the, you know, song goes, and pray on it. Pray. Keep asking God for what you want, because it's like Jesus said when he said about the woman who was complaining against her neighbor. Finally, you know, the judge just was like, okay, give her whatever she wants. I'm tired of hearing her. You know, and maybe God's not quite like that specifically, but that was an example that he put up there. So, you know, I feel like you should never stop praying for something that you want. Whatever the situation or problem, there is always a solution. And there is. Sometimes you might not like the solution, but there's always a solution. There's someone that I know that is having a lot of problems with some family members, and the easy solution is don't deal with them anymore. Don't talk to them anymore. But the person involved didn't like that. They felt like they couldn't do that. I have done that. So to me, if there's not going to be a resolution and you know that, excuse me while I scratch my back here, I look like a big bear. But sometimes the solution is to walk away. You never know. And if you remember to look within, even as you search around for the right course of action, you will be able to center yourself, clear your mind, and see that nothing has to be impossible. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on here with my itchy back. I look like a bear on a tree. There's no right way. As long as you're doing something, and it's like I used to tell in my parenting classes, there's no right way. It has to be done by your kids. If that's true, you're micromanaging too hard. As long as it gets done, and they do it their way, which might not necessarily be your way, but it still's getting done, don't micromanage them, So sometimes you just have to center yourself, think about all the alternatives that are in existence, and that can help you maybe, because sometimes if you think about that and you come up with some funny, ridiculous stuff, you can look at more practical things that, might be doable. The first step in overcoming any obstacle is to believe that it can be overcome. And that is the first step. If you don't believe something can be overcome, then for you, it can't. So, you have to believe that, yeah, I can fix this. This can be, something that I can do, whatever the case may be. And that is the first step to overcoming a thing. Doing so will give you the strength and courage to move through any crisis. And that's what you need. You need strength and you need courage. If you give up anytime anything's too hard, you're never going to succeed on anything. If you're afraid all the time to do anything, you're never going to do anything. The second step is to make a resolution that you can prevail over any chaos. And let's face the facts. Life is chaos. We don't need a chaos theory because life is chaos. We have one anyway, but so life is going to throw stuff at you, curveballs. Life is like dodgeball. Sometimes you see the ball coming, you can dodge. Sometimes you can't. So you're going to get hit in the face sometimes. And just accept that and deal with it and move on. Enlist your support network of family and friends if necessary. That's if you have some. I feel like you can make your own little clan if you don't have family and friends that are supportive. The more minds there are to consider a problem, the more solutions can be found. And that's something good is, pick people's brains, ask for advice. You don't always have to take their advice if you don't like their advice. That's what, a lot of people don't understand is you can ask for advice, but that doesn't mean you have to take it. Don't discount ideas just because they seem impractical or unrealistic. And like I said, sometimes if you think about the crazy stuff that you could do, you realize what's the more sensible, common sense way to do a thing versus, something out in left field. And don't keep searching for the best alternative. Now, each situation might have a best, or it might have several best. My husband and I, we have contingency plans for different things. And we're like, well, this would be the ideal. But if we can't do that, then this will be the next best, and then that'll be the next best after that, at least. So, making plans that way, you don't get so disappointed because you don't have these great expectations of things. you have flexibility in your life. That, one thing or another is going to go your way. So, come up with several alternatives to get to where you want to be. Often there is no best choice. There is only a choice to make, so we can begin moving beyond whatever is obstructing our path. And sometimes that just happens. You get blocked, you get stopped. Sometimes, it's a positive thing. Sometimes it's a negative thing. So, just realize, like I say, be like water. You can go over something, under something, around something, through something if you keep knocking on it eventually. So, there's always a way to do something you want to do. At the very least, making a choice, even if it isn't the ideal one, can give you a sense of peace before you have to figure out what your next course of action will be. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you realize you can't immediately go and do what you want to do. There has to be some smaller steps involved. If you feel overwhelmed by the scope of your troubles, which, a lot of people do. Depression, anxiety is rampant in this country. You may want to think of other people who have turned adversity into triumph. And there are plenty of people. And if you don't know any or haven't heard, you just start Googling, people who have turned adversity into triumph. And you want to get a whole bunch of pages to look at, and get you some inspiration if you don't have any. We often gain a fresh perspective when we remember others who have overcome larger obstacles. And I think about, we were talking about a story about Renoir and, having a paintbrush tied to his hand so he could still paint because he was in such pain he couldn't even do it by himself. And there are people, who have become athletes who are, missing limbs. And, if you are in the woe is me thing and, my life, just remember there's always someone who's got it worse than you. And if you can think about that, if you got a house, food, clothing, you're doing a lot better than a whole lot of people in the third world are doing. So, remember that it might not be as bad as you think. It can be inspiring to hear of their victories, helping us remember that there is always light at the end of every tunnel. And there is. Unless you hold yourself back or stop yourself from doing anything positive in life, there's always going to be, something positive to look forward to. It is during our darkest hours that we sometimes need to be reminded and remind ourselves that we don't have to feel helpless. And a lot of people learn helplessness. Their parents raise them that way. Oh, you can't do anything, or do this for you. I had a bit of that going on when I was younger because they didn't like the way I did anything, so they always wanted to do everything for me. And I kind of praised one of my cousins I was talking to her. I said, I like that you didn't do stuff for me. You had me do it myself. And I appreciated that, because I'm not an idiot. I have an IQ of 135, so definitely not an idiot. But, sometimes I was treated that way. And so I appreciated that this person never treated me that way. They just assumed, I was as good as they were and I could do anything they could do. And that gave me some confidence, that I wasn't, helpless and couldn't do anything. You have within and around you the resources to find a solution to any problem. And you do. You just have to use them. And remember that if a solution or choice you make doesn't work, you are always free to try another. Because you are. It's like, a Rubik's Cube. You make one move, that's not going to fix the whole cube. You might have to make, hundreds more, but eventually you get it right. So that's life. The first thing you try might not succeed. You just keep trying. Believe that you can get through anything and you will always prevail. And we know people like that who've come up from hard circumstances and things and gone on to be, really big or famous or, rich. So we know it can be done. It just takes the strength and courage to do it. So, if you want to overcome your obstacles, you need to remember that nothing is insurmountable. There's always a way. There's an old saying, which is kind of a gross, mean saying, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't know how that ever came about. That's kind of horrible, but that's the sentiment there. Think about it. Please like and share this wisdom so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. Until next time.